What's up, everybody? Big Hurt 916, getting down with Fresh Out. You know how we do it over here. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, share the channel, man. Let's bust this algorithm open and go to freshoutseries.com if you want to pick up some merch and support. Because of you guys, we continue to do the channel going on 11 years now. So, hey, let's represent. And I'm telling you, I'm always bringing you guys groundbreaking interviews with people who are raw, real, and uncut. And I got my man here, Ronnie Bo, reached out to me. And I thought this was an interview that needed to be shared with our audience. So we're going to get into it. And Ronnie Bo, tell the people a little bit about your background, man, and where you're from.
I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I grew up in a 53206 zip code of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And a few years ago, it was a movie called 53206 that came out, and it was based off the fact that that zip code was the highest crime rate zip code in the United States at the time. Some people from out New York came and did like a movie about it. So that's the environment I come from. So I can relate to anybody from the trenches because I come from the trenches. My first dream of what I wanted to be was to be a rapper. I became that. I was in the Source magazine because Lil Wayne had stole one of my songs back then. That was like 14 years ago. After that, I went to prison, and while I was in prison, I started writing books. So I became a book author, and that's kind of what I present myself as now when people ask me what I do for a living. I really don't consider myself a rapper no more. I'm still a songwriter, but I'm more so a book author and just involved in like political affairs that involve people like me, like who come from the streets, who come from the trenches, those who consider themselves trap niggas or whatever. Like, there's a lot of injustice goes on in the system, and I'm aware of it. I studied a lot about law, so right now I'm just here to liberate myself and my people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, growing up in that environment, during the time that you were, looking to get into like the rap game, what was it like as for a young man? How did it differ? Because I've interviewed people who like from New York and California. California, LA. You have a lot of the gang influence. You have, it's hard sometimes. Dealing with peer pressure. How was it for you as a young man? Did you have a father figure? Were you, a strong family? I mean, did you have more influence from the streets? What was that like?
Yeah, I had more influence from the streets. Like I would never want to down talk my family, but unfortunately, I really didn't come from a real family. Everybody in the family didn't like each other for reasons. My dad, I guess my biological father, he disappeared when I was like 9 years old. So I knew him before that, and I had love for him. So I was kind of like confused and hurt and frustrated that he just disappeared. But then my mom, I mean, she tried to be the best mother she could be, but I don't think that she was stable enough, like mentally or even like financially, to raise me properly. So, I started selling drugs when I was like 11 years old for school clothes and video games because I noticed that my mama wasn't really able to provide, my wants and needs, to the extent that I felt would be sufficient. I seen other kids at school wearing name brand clothes, or other kids in the neighborhood had video games that I wanted or whatever. And, I came down. My mama, she just, she wasn't in position to really provide that much. So I took my chances at an early age. Everybody that I was hanging around, they was at least 5 years older than me, 14, 15. And I was watching what they was doing. They was already selling drugs involved in the streets. I started studying them. Some of them used to even come to my my residence, my mama wasn't really at home a lot. So me and my older brother, we was at home, by ourselves most of the time. So we had let the neighborhood dope boys come in and bag up and cook up. So I was learning everything at an early age, you know what I mean? But can't knock my upbringing. It made me who I am today and put me in position to be able to relate to my culture. So, you know, I'm proud of my upbringing.
And so how did that transition into you getting into the rap game? Could you say you went into the rap game, then you went to prison after you were in the rap game, or did you go to prison before you got into the rap game?
Well, I used to always rap for fun. Back then, Tupac was like one of my idols. So, you know, Tupac stood for a lot, and I believe he probably one of the greatest rappers ever. And I guess it's safe to say that I looked up to him and probably wanted to be like him as a youth. You know what I mean? So I think that inspired me to be a rapper, and even Easy E. Like I always liked the Easy E and NWA, and some of the things that they stood for. So you know, I didn't. That's what I wanted to be. If it wasn't the neighborhood dope boys who had the best clothes and the best cars, I looked up to rappers. You know what I mean? And I think that's the case for most youth. We don't really want to be like doctors and lawyers or politicians like we probably should be. We more so influenced by the neighborhood dope boys and the rappers, what I mean, at least as a youth. So I think that probably influenced me to become a rapper.
And then did you get signed to somebody local, or were you on a major label, or did you put out a couple CDs back then, or?
Yeah, I realized back then that I would have to do everything myself. You know, I knew I knew how to make money. Like I said, I started selling drugs when I was 11. So I wasn't really looking for nobody to put no money behind me or nobody to sign to. I was fortunate enough to meet somebody that taught me the music game at an early age. So I understood that a lot of rappers who appear to be rich be really broke behind the scenes, and they really don't make a lot of money. They don't own their masters. They barely own they self. So I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to, like, you know, I understood like Master P's story and everything Suge Knight did, and how they was kind of like independent and making more money than, you know, people who we thought was probably richer, artists who we thought, was rich, and how they conducted themselves in the business. And I looked up to that, and I wanted to be more so like, you know, like that, to have control and to own my rights and my masters. And not, a lot of artists, whether they realize it or not, most of them like rich slaves, you know what I mean? And most of them not even rich, you know what I mean? Because they being controlled, they can't even control what they put out. They might want to put out some inspirational Tupac changed the world type songs, but they labels like, no, that's not gonna sell. We need you to talk about killing people and selling drugs. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I just want to have control.
And as you see in the industry, was it something that you saw once you got into it? You're like, man, this ain't for me, and so you kind of like wanted to transition out. Was it, knowing that what you know now, it wasn't all that you thought it was, so you figured you get into something else afterwards? Is that what made your transition more into being a writer?
Yeah, I went to jail during the time. It it was a period. I mean, you could look it up too. It's an article on the top 40 chart still that talks about Lil Wayne and Young Money Records stealing one of my songs. And at this time, like, I was up and coming. I was actually getting calls from major labels. This was back in like '09, going into 2010. So I was excited about my career at that time, and I felt like I was just about to make it, and I end up going back to prison around that time. So I was discouraged. I felt like the publicity of Lil Wayne stealing my song was just about to put me in position to be one of the top artists back then. So I was just discouraged really. And then me knowing, the statistics of the rap game, and me knowing that I'm getting older, it's like this, it just wasn't, I wasn't fit for it no more. Like even to this day I still write and I even record sometimes, but I just don't have the passion that I had then, because now, especially, you know, ever since I started writing books, I actually wrote my first book when I went to jail around that time. So I just I just found more meaning in life, trying to, you know, fill in for people like Malcolm X who actually stood for something. And I feel like I get that message out through writing books or doing what we doing right now. You know what I mean? And me knowing the law, I feel like if I get the message out and people look into what I know, which I can teach through books, that I could free a lot of modern day slaves who locked up for drug cases and things of that nature. So I
Now,
just I just found.
no, I didn't mean to cut you off, but when you went to prison, was there somebody in particular or mentor who kind of put you up on game with the law and about elevating yourself consciously? Because I know for myself, I had two mentors who really uh, kind of inspired me and put me on a path to finding out who I was and what my true purpose was. And I spent a lot of time in a law library and I separated myself from a lot of the bullshit on the yard. What was the things that influenced you while you were inside that made you want to, better yourself and not, spend the time just hanging out and playing sports and, dominoes and stuff like that? What kind of was what was the turning point for that?
Well, in prison, it's not much to do other than play board games, play cards, gamble off sports, or learn, and I got a passion for learning even to this day. So, you know, they have books there. Only I never read like novels, only read things that I could actually learn from. And, I had those who supported me sending me books, and I only wanted to read about stuff like psychology, economics, uh, politics, uh, sociology, things of that nature, and law. Because I knew that I was wrongly incarcerated, so I focused on law. I wanted to learn the law so I could defend myself. I noticed that I can't really depend on lawyers. They get our money. They really salesmen at first. They sell themselves. They act like they the ones they could get you out. Then once they get your money, they want you to take a plea. They
Hmm.
basically, fuck you over. So it's like I can't keep going out like that. I gave away thousands of dollars to lawyers who never did nothing to get me justice. So, I took it upon myself. Let me start studying the law for myself. Let me understand psychology and sociology better so that I conduct myself in a more diplomatic manner in the world, you know what I mean? And I never stopped since then. Just, you know, even now, I know so much that, you know, you know, I mean, I could do anything that any lawyer could do or any politician could do, but I'm still so humble that I act like I don't know nothing so that I can continue to learn, because I could be having a talk with you. And if I act like I know everything, then you might stay hush and listen to what I want to say, but I want to hear what you got to say because I know that I could learn from you or anybody else. You know what I mean?
And, putting that in a perspective of how you've self-motivated yourself to learn the law, which, a lot of people fail to realize that back in the day, it was every man's duty to know the law as well as being able to defend his family. And so being learned in the law, being learned in survival, all of that was a part of being a man. And from what I can see now, they're really trying to, demasculinize a lot of the males, especially black males, and and influence the younger people to really not have too much self-awareness, or just certain qualities that make a person have morals and values. What would you say, looking at um, you know the young people and society in general, and especially the young Black men, what would you say right now is some of the things that a lot of these young men are lacking, and how do you see that changing as far as with the current situation? I mean, the hip hop industry, they're promoting drug addicts, young guys now bragging, and they're showing videos of guys in prison, selling weed and drugs, and they're like making it seem like prison is cool, it's not a big deal, and they're basically making it to where don't worry, if you get caught and go to prison, it's still cool. I mean, what do you see as far as the narrative and how that could be changed?
Well, I understand it. It's really a business. The prison industry is a big business, and it's like it's kind of like the music industry and the prison industry is like conducive, like they work together. And the people who own the prison industry also own the music industry, and they understand how influential music is. Like music, back, even before the Bible was used as like voodoo, because it could inspire your actions. It can inspire you to do certain things, whether good or bad. So with these music industry executives knowing that, and also owning the prison industry, they use it to inspire us to do bad. Like, well, the youth, that is, with me understanding that, like, I guess I can't say us no more because I'm more aware, but I think the youth is still unaware of how music is being used to inspire them to kill people and sell drugs, and they think the shit cool. You know what I mean? But they don't know they gonna end up going through what I went through. I spent over 10 years of my life in prison, because I wasn't aware of that. I'm thinking this is what it is, this the way of life, you know what I'm saying? And I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? I'm supposed to sell these drugs to provide for myself. I'm supposed to kill dude for talking crazy about me. You know what I mean? Like, the youth just killing for no reason now. Even back when I was growing up, I felt like the things that I was doing was more justifiable. Somebody violate you or your people the wrong way and put your life in danger or whatever, then yeah, okay, you gotta do what you gotta do. But now it's like you not even accepted if you don't have no bodies. You ain't killed nobody like that.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
crazy.
understand. Yeah, I don't understand that. And I got a nephew who I basically raised is locked up right now for murder. Somebody who was with me like every day prior to that. And I'm not gonna say whether I think he did it or not, but I know for sure that Lil Durk and King Von, what I mean, had a major impact on his thought process. You know what I mean? And I like Lil Durk and King Von music too. No disrespect to them. It just no, I just don't like how the youth is, they take to these music lyrics so much and think that everything they hear is like I gotta be like that. Like you don't. And most of them gonna learn the hard way, and I hope my movement can prevent that. You know what I mean? Because I know better. I was in their shoes, and I had to learn the hard way. I don't want them to have to learn the hard way. You know what I mean? I didn't have nobody like me who can tell them better, and I'm hoping that they would listen, because I'm no different from them.
And what's crazy, man, is that the same beat, the same hard lyrics could be talking about being a good dad, could be talking about raising your family, could be talking about being a businessman, being a doctor, being a lawyer, all these different things, engineer, that we are so unfamiliar with. There are Black doctors, Black lawyers. I mean, if you look at our history, we have a lot of great people who aren't really taught or recognized that have had some major impactful, and, inventions in American culture. But if you focus that same energy, and what gets me is like you got the basketball player, they're influenced by, because behind closed doors they want to be gangsters. So John Moran, some of these dudes run around with guns and showing like, and it's like, dude, nobody's really nobody's really sitting down and calling it what it is. The rapper, they're all making money, so they're not calling it what it is, because they, of course, the label is going to make sure somebody takes the fall if they get caught up. But the reality of it is that we can make great music, but it doesn't have to be us, talking about being serial killers. It doesn't have to be us talking about killing each other. I mean, because people want to always talk about, in my opinion, the racial thing, but dude, look at the neighborhoods. I mean, we're preying on each other. And if you look at like Armenian, the Korean, the Jewish communities, the Russian, these guys are looking out for each other. Their businesses and their communities and the safety of those places. We're only a reflection of what we project. And if we don't call each other and hold some type of accountability, everybody's going to think that, oh man, it is what it is, man. And I think that's the biggest thing is, the Black community in general is having some accountability. And, for us to start, making these young people accountable, but also taking some accountability ourselves, especially the parents. I mean, I don't have any kids, but these parents and, family members, like, hey man, your little kid, your little son or daughter, they're not as innocent as you think they are. And you have to step your game up. A lot of the parents, you can't say that, blame, man, you have to step your game up. And that's one of the biggest reasons why these kids, and it happens around, I would say, like, you said 9, for me, it was around 12, 13, where you start trying to identify and figure out who you are, and you start looking around. My mom was a good mom, but I had no father figure. And so I'm looking at the streets. I'm looking at this guy over here playing basketball, this guy selling drugs, this guy football, or this guy over here after school. I'm looking and trying to find something that makes it relatable. And I think that's one of the biggest things, man. And society in general, man, if you don't have that structure at home, that structure where you somehow respect or fear somebody at home, and you have values, the streets are going to raise you. And it doesn't matter if you're in a Black environment or a white environment. There's white kids out here, man, in Arizona, they call themselves the Gilbert Goons. Little rich white kids, man, they beating up kids with brass knuckles. They're doing sideshows type shit. Then they filming rap videos. It's like, what are you guys doing? You know what I mean? So the impression, the influence of our culture, Black culture, hits all these other cultures, and you see them trying to emulate. They don't want the shit that comes with it, because as a white kid, you might get a slap on the wrist. If you're a Black kid, you beat somebody with brass knuckles, you going down. There's a kid out here, man, beat a kid up brass knuckles, only got 6 months. 6 months. I ain't never heard of anybody I know in the Black community getting 6 months for anything.